And we're live.
And we are indeed live. Welcome, everybody, to day 26 of this 2023 NaNoWriMo daily live stream sprintathon. I think we're all we're increasingly realizing how mad we are to do this. But hey,
Yeah.
we're nearly there. We're getting there. As usual, Daniel Hand here, accompanied by Ember, Erica. Oh,
Jade!
Yay!
hey, perfect.
She ate
And
it.
everything's moved around. And far over there, we have a special guest. Welcome, Chandler. Thank you. Don't give me that rubbish. You're the specialist. Thank you so much for joining us, Chandler from Who Done It Stories. Chandler is a narrator, mostly of mysteries, I understand.
Primarily, yes.
And is the gentleman we can thank for Jane's Dreamy Bookshelf's existence. So, yes, thank you very much indeed, Chandler. Chandler's coming just to talk a little bit about narration, what it involves. Gary, I know, is interested in doing it, but so far no sign. I keep checking. Checking. No, still not. Yeah.
Gary! Just
We
screaming
need
at the internet.
you. How's everybody been? Good weekend?
Yeah.
Can't complain.
Yeah, but I can't complain. I still do.
Well, that's you.
Indeed. How's the snow, Erica?
It finally stopped. I'm going to be intermittently muting because my husband is vacuuming our bedroom, which is in the room behind me. He thought that right now was the best time to do that, which is fine. It is what it is. But it finally stopped snowing after snowing for 10 hours yesterday. I think we got 8 or 9 inches.
Oh, wow.
Don't, Dan. Just don't. I know. I can sense it.
Okay. Thank you.
And stop. Just. Not today.
This is how I know that friendships are real. When people just start bullying me in advance, you know, that just seems to be how all my relationships end up. It doesn't matter who they're with. It's just like, Dan, don't do it. I know
I'm not bullying you. I'm saving you from yourself.
So, how are we going to start? Does anybody have any cards they'd like to draw? We drew the Sexy King of Pentacles yesterday, didn't we, from my deck? So
yes, we
did. We sure did.
Wow.
I'll go ahead and draw.
Go for it.
Since my office is in disarray, I feel like I need to cleanse the energy in here. You all are going to see the office move around several more times because I just can't figure out they can't figure it out. Can't figure it out. Now I'm shuffling my cards. So we're going to ask about writing on this 26th day of November. What have we done?
What have we done?
I'm so bad at shuffling. Get it together, Ember. Okay.
It will be okay.
Right, we got it? Oh. I pulled the 10 of Cups again. Isn't that strange?
What is it with us and the 10 of Cups?
It's the 10 of Cups and the 6 of Swords that we keep pulling out?
Yeah.
That's wild. Okay, well, we'll read the 10 of Cups again because I think that maybe we didn't get the message, I guess, the first time.
Guys, come on, listen.
Or we just really, really need it.
Maybe we need it. I mean, it's a lovely, happy card. Here we go. It's a beautiful day, except for Erica. A rainbow shines brightly in a clear blue sky, and all is full of joy. You've been through some trials and tribulations, but your home life is perfectly at peace and in balance. Stop and smell the roses, appreciate your loved ones around you, and just enjoy these beautiful moments. I needed that today.
Well, that was lovely.
Here's the card once more. I can get it so. There we go.
Oh,
A little bit blurry. Happy families.
Well, I certainly appreciate all of you.
aw.
Thanks, Dan.
Sorry. Don't
No, it was sweet.
As he pukes now.
I was waiting for the puke there.
Well, you know, I've got. I have a gig. I've got to do it. You know, you've got to have the gimmick.
Yeah.
So, how about we invite our guest to tell us a little bit about narration? We have two narrators here. We have, well, one individual who has shown an interest in narrating. So, why don't we hand the mic over to Jen and Chandler and Gary, and the rest of us will sit back and heckle.
Heckle.
Good at that.
Okay, so yeah, Chandler, tell us a little bit about how you. Well, yeah, what does the job entail? How did you get involved? How did you manage to con Jane into doing it? You know, give us all the juicy details.
I just out of curiosity wanted to try it. So I started looking at how even someone gets started doing something like this, and I happened to notice that Audible has something called ACX, which is where their narrators and authors go and present their material, and you can have, you know, tons of narrators come in and do auditions. So they've got it set up for different ways where you can, as an author, pay someone per hour, per finished hour, or it can do a royalty share, which is kind of cool because if you are someone that wants to have their book narrated, but you don't want to pay for it, then, or out of pocket right off the bat, then you can do a royalty share. So you agree on a percentage of every sale that's sold of the audiobook that you, the author, get and the narrator gets. So, you know, if your book, let's say, doesn't do too well, there's nothing out of pocket. If it does very well, then you both kind of get to reap the benefits of it. It's not something I'd ever done. I was just really curious on what it would entail. I already had microphones because I play guitar and other instruments, so I was like, well, I'll give it a shot, and that's kind of how it started, just out of sheer curiosity.
How long ago was that, if you don't mind me asking?
2016.
Oh, wow.
So I did it from 2016 to about 2019, and then stopped just because of work, family, kids, and what have you. Yeah, they take up time. And quiet is a keen thing, so I wasn't allowed much of that. And then so trying to convince Jane to get back into this, I said, well, maybe we should do some collaborations on a few things, just for fun, just for kicks. Let's do a few snippets on TikTok. And then she started getting quite a bit more offers than I would, and does. So it actually worked out well. So the benefit is that it proved to her that this could be something that she should possibly look into.
I'm glad I did. It's been fun.
Plus, I like tinkering.
Well, can you tell us a bit about what it involves? I mean, obviously, we've already commented on your microphone there, and obviously, you mentioned you've got quite a few because you play the guitar.
Yeah.
You need to give me some lessons. I'm terrible.
I'm sure Gary could too. I see in the background he's got one with a capo. So,
but yeah, what do you actually need? How good is the equipment that you need up front? I mean, I've got a Yeti Blue here. Is that enough, or do you need something a bit better?
So it honestly depends. That would be sufficient enough. There are two ways to go about it. Some people will say you could spend $1,000 on a microphone, and not in an improperly treated room, it won't do you any good. You would be better off spending $1,000 on treating your room than it would be to buy a $5,000 mic or $1,000 mic or multi-$100 mic. A lot of people start out with, there are two different microphones that you go with. One is a dynamic microphone, and then there's a condenser microphone or a cardioid microphone. So a dynamic microphone is what you'll see with a lot of broadcasters. So the RE20, RE320, the Shure SMB7 are common microphones that you see, especially if you watch people on Twitch. They'll have the big black microphone. It's about, this long. It'll say Shure on the side. That's an SM7B. That is a dynamic microphone. And the reason that those are used in broadcast scenarios is because the rooms aren't fully treated. I mean, they're in a fairly large room. They've got stuff going on, people coming in at the office or coming in for interviews and things like that. So it's not a fully treated room. What that does is that the capsule of the microphone is directed, it's actually recessed into the microphone body itself. So by the time it reaches someone's voice, a lot of it is primarily directed at their mouth. So that's why you see a lot of people with dynamic microphones, broadcasters and stuff like that, talk really close to the microphone. You're only supposed to be about 1 inch to 3 inches away from it. So in a non-treated room like the one you have, you could actually have a dynamic microphone and it would sound almost like you're in a studio. So there's a lot of noise reflection that you don't realize that you actually have in a room until you use a condenser microphone, which doesn't deflect any sound. So this is a condenser microphone because I'm in a treated room, but 3 of my microphones are dynamic, and then I have other 3 microphones that are condenser. There are differences though into the sound that they actually capture. So because the dynamic microphone is a recessed capsule, it doesn't pick up a lot of nuances in your voice and in your syllables. So there's a payoff, right? When you go to a condenser microphone, then it really can pick up everything. So not only picking up room noise, it's also picking up sibilances in your S's, P's in the pops in your P's and things like that. So that's why I say I love to tinker, and my main job is in computers because it allows me to just get to tinker all day long. And so when you start the route, and then when you start looking at dynamic microphones, you take a look at, well, what are their input and output patterns? What are the hertz that they range from in capturing sound? And then cardioids are the same way. So it really comes down to, like, if you were to look at a cardioid microphone, well, I'll step back, and I talk a lot, so tell me to stop.
Carry on. This is amazing.
Or if I need to slow down.
How do you treat a room? Do you buy cookies, take it on holiday, or?
No, right? Yep. You got to take it out to dinner a couple times.
Yeah.
Tell it sounds nice. It's warm and fuzzy. No, there are a couple different ways. You can actually spend thousands of dollars on what people call whisper rooms, which are basically pre-built. So they will they'll actually already come prefabbed, and you basically just have to kind of put them together, which is an extravagant amount of money, especially if this is something that you're first wanting to get into. The cheapest thing that you can get are, oddly enough, moving blankets. So moving blankets, they actually have many different densities. You can take a look at Harbor Freight. Like behind me, because that's part of what my room is in. You can look at Harbor Freight, Lowe's, there's any hardware store will have moving blankets. So oddly enough, they all have different densities, and they also have different fills. And what's pretty cool is that a lot of them now will actually indicate what the noise rejection or noise absorption is. So the heavier the denser the blanket, obviously the less rejection you're going to have. So the easiest thing literally would be to either use moving blankets or find closets. So, if you look at ACX, there are tons and tons of forums regarding ACX and just room treating. And some people will talk about, hey, just, go talk in a closet because you already have clothes that are absorbing your sound. It's already a confined space, so there's not a lot of echo. And that is kind of the biggest thing. If you can snap or clap and you can hear the reverberation in your snap or clap, then that means by you talking, even though you might not be able to audibly hear it when you're recording, you will be. So I'm a hand talker. I used to be an instructor, so I move around quite a bit. So the easiest thing, literally, I mean, even if just to start out, is if you were going to go with a cardioid microphone, to look at utilizing a closet that you have, or a big blanket. Some people take comforters. To sidebar this, if you were really interested, there's a guy on YouTube called Booth Junkie, and he does a ton of professional audio narration, and he'll go through, and he's got so many different scenarios. You know, he'll talk about how, well, if he's got a deadline yet he's on the road, so he's in a hotel room. He'll talk about how he stacks the pillows from the bed and the blanket and the couch and stuff, and how he creates a vocal booth in there. He's one of the examples he has is he takes a bathroom that's completely porcelain and ceramic, standing inside of a ceramic shower and making it soundproof, or at least, you know, good enough to be able to actually record on. So
My goodness.
you could spend an astronomical amount of time just researching these types of different things. But like I said, choosing a closet, if you can get moving blankets, that's great. If not, a thick comforter would work perfectly fine. The other thing is, if you were looking at buying, I have them up on the shelf, sound absorbing foam, there's a place called foamfactory.com, and oddly enough, they actually make it. There you go, Shane's showing one. They make 12 by 12 and 12 by 14s, and you can get them that are like 3 feet by 2.5 feet, which are some of the ones that I have. And they're actually pretty inexpensive. The reason I mentioned them is because on Amazon, you'll find that you can buy sound absorption panels, but you have to pay attention to the thickness, because you at least want 2 inches. Most of the ones on Amazon that are cheap are about 1/2 inch to 1 inch thick, and they're not going to do a lot of noise reduction. So if you look for stuff, you'll want to look to see what a low or high NRC level is, which is basically noise reduction. So yeah.
I mean, Gary, you are the wannabe here. How about you ask some questions, and Jane, why don't you chip in and tell us a bit about, you know, your experiences, and, you know, because obviously this is a writing website team. I should say, how do you work in the authorial side of everything?
So I have been writing some sleep stories and short mystery stories, and then I can take what I've written, which is really cool, and then narrate them for entertainment purposes. So I have a walk-in closet that I use to record in. I was recording out here, but the dead air in between when I was speaking is really noticeable. So in the closet there's clothes and comforters and blankets, and the microphone's a little bit better. I think I don't know what microphone I have. Chandler handles all that stuff. So
Let Chandler do that side of
yeah,
things.
just let him set it up, and then I just go in there and record. And I think it's a lot of fun. Because I can still write, but then I can also narrate. So I just like that balance. It's kind of cool.
So, I guess questions. I have many, obviously.
Good, keep them coming.
You'll probably hear banging on the door.
I was just about to say the same thing. I've just got to go and discipline a teenager. I'll be back in a second.
Mine's 6 years old and very insistent that she needs to talk to me right now. It's important. So I'm very interested in those sound dampening.
Right.
But on a kind of a practical side of things, how much time do you invest versus runtime of the recording?
Sure. So it is a lengthy process. Only because, all right, so when you read something in your mind, you obviously read it a lot faster than if you were to read it out loud. So the first thing that I tell anybody who wants to try to get into narration, just to try to determine what your standard recording time is going to be, is read the chapter out loud. How long did it take you? How many mistakes did you make? Because, all right, so let's say, you know, a 10-page chapter takes 30 minutes to read. Well, when you sit down to narrate it, no matter how confident you are, it'll still probably take you 1.5 hours to 2 hours just to record what would typically take 20 to 30 minutes just to read. Part of that is because, well, sometimes I read ahead. I think a sentence is going to go somewhere, and then I end up saying the wrong word, so I've got to start over. There are a couple different methods. I used to, and I just started recently, but I used to use a dog clicker. So whenever there was an error, instead of me stopping, going back and re-recording, I would hit a dog click. And that way, in my recording and my wavelength, I could see this massive spike. So I would know where the error was instead of trying to listen to the whole thing and find where it was. I started recently doing something called punch and roll, where you stop, and in Audacity or Twisted Wave or any DAW that you use to record, they'll typically have an option where you can hit a button where if your cursor's here, you can say, okay, I want you to go back 3 seconds, play back, and once you get to my point, I want you to start recording. So that way you can kind of, continue to record, but not have to edit, so to speak, as you're going through it. So depending on whichever method you use, the timing probably still results in about the same. It's still probably going to take about an hour and a half to 2 hours to record a couple, a chapter or so. From there, now that you've got it recorded, it's going to take you. All right. So now let's say that you've got this hour worth of recording. Well, it's at least going to take you an hour just to edit it, because that's the sheer length of it. So now you've got to go back and you've got to do spacing, because as you're talking and recording, it might not be at the pace that you want it to be when you go back and re-listen to it. So then you have to worry about every single dead space between dialogue and your context. You're constantly, okay, I need this to be half a second. This needs to be 1 second. So it could take, one chapter could easily take you 8 hours to edit and master, and to record and to master.
Yeah.
If I'm honest, I'm surprised it's only 8 hours. I mean, I try and do a 15-minute video, and I had to get an editor to do it for me because it was taking 6 hours per 15 minutes. It was just ridiculous.
Yeah. If starting out, that might be, it might take a little bit longer, but it's certainly something to be aware of, because the other thing that'll happen is that once you're listening to it and you're like, oh, I didn't realize that I said at instead of the. So then you got to go back and record. But here's the caveat. If you notice this on a different day, because once you start recording yourself and listening, you'll notice that your tone and voice changes from day to day. So your voice might be higher or more raspy on the day that you were recording versus today when you're not. So then you're like, now I got to figure out how to do this. And you could spend a half an hour just trying to be like, okay, I got to adjust my normalization levels and peaks and try to make this a little more it can be a little daunting, but after a while it is fun, because finally at the end of your 8 hours, you get to listen to this finalized product. And you're like, oh, this just sounds incredible, or not. So, it's a gamble, but either way.
How long does it take here's a question. How long does it take to get over that, oh my God, I've got to listen to the sound of my own voice? Because obviously hearing what your voice actually sounds like to other people is very different to what it sounds like in your own head.
It is. However, if you haven't recorded yourself in a professional level, it is different than the way that you sound. You might be like, oh man, I could listen to myself all day long. You really don't know, because I've never been joyed by the sound of my voice, but after listening to it being recorded, and you're like, this isn't so bad.
Yeah.
But then again, if you really hate the sound of your voice, you might just want to do a whole bunch of recording one day and plan out your month to edit every other day, so you don't have to get exhausted by the sound of it.
Or hire an editor like
You could
Dan.
Yeah.
And there are a couple things you can do to limit the amount of time it takes to edit, but nonetheless, sorry, go ahead.
So roughly you're talking a 3 to 4 times the amount of runtime is the amount of work that goes into it.
Yeah, so to give you an idea, I narrated 2 books from a USA bestseller. It was about 13 hours finished, and I think I probably had close to 100 hours of recorded audio. Just to give you, and then to go back and edit it took about 4 to 6 months to finalize editing it, because there were a ton. It was a thick book, but nonetheless, so it'll at least take 4 times the amount of a final, once you listen to a final piece.
Good
But you get faster at it. Like one of the applications that we use is called Twisted Wave, which is nice. It'll actually allow you to select all of your dead air, and you can even specify based on what its frequency is. There's a ton of minute adjustments you can make. The point being, though, is I can say, okay, let's say that the standardization of the audio pacing that I want for this chapter is going to be 1.5 seconds in between each point of dialogue. So between paragraphs, between speaking parts, non-speaking parts, I can go into Twisted Wave and say, okay, select all of my dead air and replace it all with 1.5 seconds. So now at least I know I'm at a pretty good base. So I don't have to go through every blank spot and copy paste 1.5 seconds. Now, there will be times you have to make your adjustments. Obviously, time between narration and dialogue typically ranges between 1 to 1.2 seconds. The end of dialogue to narration is about the same. The beginning and ending of chapters and even paragraphs range between 1.5 seconds to 2 seconds. So there are some adjustments you'll still have to make, but you don't have to now go through every single dead air space and make sure there's 1.5 seconds or something roughly like that. Not only that, you can then go through, because there are some audiobooks, and how many of you actually do listen to audiobooks? Any? No. Okay. Do you like it when the narrator, when you can hear them breathe or take breaths? I personally don't, so I actually remove it from all of mine. But I've never had feedback of yes or no, so I've always been curious. But I asked that for a reason.
I have heard somewhere it is part of the kind of feeling of the piece where there's some heavy breathing because they're running, or
right. We hope they're running, depending on what novel you're reading.
I don't know if I've ever thought about it, but I don't particularly like audiobooks or podcasts because I listen to people talk for a living, and so I just prefer to read as opposed to listen to people read.
That's understandable.
Amber, you were saying something, but your mic's quite far away, so you're quite quiet.
Oh, yeah. Whoopsie. I just said what Erica said. I never thought about it. I haven't noticed it one way or the other.
I find it really annoying in songs.
Really?
Yeah, when I don't want to hear someone go.
I think it's probably similar to the
frets.
The frets.
Yeah, I can't. That bothers me.
Can't stand it. Some people actually like it.
Yeah.
See, I like slap bass, so I can't.
Well, so my point in asking that was with Twisted Waves, you can actually, like I said, go through, and because you can highlight all the dead areas and even adjust the frequencies, I can have it include any breath that I take. And then it has, which Audacity and no other tool that I know of supports it.
Sorry, Erica's swaying there, and I think she had the same thing. You can do every breath you take, but can do every move you make. Sorry. Erica and I both had exactly the same thought.
Like accurate.
Nice.
Sorry, carry on.
No, I was just saying it allows me to quickly go and replace all of those with dead air, and it'll actually paste over it with a piece of dead air space that I have, regardless of the size. So it's kind of cool because, like with any other software, when you paste, it's gonna, if it's a 1.5 second clip, it's going to paste in a 1.5 second clip. Well, if I only highlight something that's 0.5 seconds, I don't want it to replace 0.5 seconds with 1.5 seconds. I want to replace it with the air that I have, but only in the 0.5 second window, if that makes sense, or selection. So in any case, it if it's something you were to see, it does help speed up the editing process.
Well, it's just like, oh gosh, I can't remember what it's called. My husband just ordered this, a stream board. Is that, does that thing? And he was like he was explaining to me what it was. And I said, is this going to make your life easier and faster? And he said, yes. And I said, then get it. And it's like, that's kind of what that makes me think of. It's like, it's just this quick, thing that is going to make the process that much faster.
Yes. And that's it really does. Cool. Yeah. Because in the end, like I said, 6-8 hours in editing. Every minute counts. So the least amount you can have, the better.
So that's the production side of things.
Yes.
What kind of investment in
Yeah.
simoleons are we
No. So okay. It can be fairly inexpensive. Especially if like, let's say that this isn't something that you're sure that you want to do, but you want to narrate your book or something, without a high investment. There are, I would, and you don't want to go through the trouble of treating a room or anything like that. I would take a look at, oddly enough, Fifine makes a, let's see. I think, nope. I was going to see if I could find the box. Fifine makes a dynamic microphone, and I put the box up. Fifine makes a dynamic microphone that is, I think, $35, and it's comparable. And I say this loosely, but for the sake of cost, it's comparable to a Shure SMB or an RE20 and RE320, which are $399 and $499 microphones. And like I said, for something that cheap, as good as it is for the amount of detail it takes, then it is a very cheap option. Because the other thing that you have to be careful about is that there are a lot of other cheaper USB microphones, but you have to really pay attention to the noise floor, because that ends up being, that can be a bad culprit in a finalized product. Because if my microphone has a loud noise itself, me talking over it doesn't hide it, and any type of editing that I can do isn't going to take that out. So I can clear out all the dead air and the dead air noise where it's extremely noticeable, but I can't take it out over my voice. And like I said, that is a very cheap microphone. I think it's the Fifine K85, if I remember the name. Yeah. So it does have XLR built in the back as well. So for $35, you've got a really, adequate sounding microphone where you wouldn't have to really future-proof or treat your room to limit the amount of echo.
And Kraken did ask a question earlier, which I was wondering, what Stream Deck? What was a Stream Deck? Okay, so I'm actually, since we're on this the new thing, I wasn't sure where the chat was, and I just found it. So sorry, I'm pulling up the link. I'm gonna share it. I'm gonna try.
So does he do a lot of podcasting?
So he is going to start. We have had a change in yes, that Kraken, that change in career and all that fun stuff. But so a Stream Deck is this thing that you can like program a bunch of buttons, and so he is an artist, and so like he can program like just a touch of a button to change a brush size, or to change like all of these things. So like instead of hitting Control Z, he can just touch a button and it like eliminates a step.
Oh yeah, from a graphic design perspective, that is so critical. If you are being slowed down by button clicks and things like that, it sounds really first world and silly, but like having shortcuts is so critical when you're just trying to bust stuff out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so this
is not well designed.
Yeah, so this thing and he actually got it on sale. It's on sale right now. It's like $50 off, but you can program like 15 different commands on it. So yeah. Yes, that too.
Yeah. They're good. They can come in handy too if you do podcasting or streaming, where if you've got multiple people in person, so you can actually have two microphones. You can set audio levels and things of that nature on it as well. Obviously
It's
not for
handy.
his.
I was just spending so much time looking at like microphones, capture cards, video options, streaming software. Like it can become really overwhelming.
So we're essentially the equivalent of pedals for guitars.
That you could program. So yeah, a blank pedal that you could program to do whatever action you needed it to. Like she said, changing a brush size. I mean, you could literally combine any key to one single button on a keypad.
Huh.
It's like the shock chock radio button.
Right. I was gonna say a lot of people use them for soundboards. My laughing, crowd cheering. When I just
Yeah.
I love it. Yes.
So that's the physical hardware side of things. What about the software side of things?
Sure. So Audacity is what 99% of what people start out with using, and
Audacity,
probably 80 to 85% of the people continue to use it because it's free. They've got a ton of plugins. I'll record and do my basic editing and timing in Twisted Wave, but I actually do import it into Audacity. If you do a search on Google for Audacity ACX mastering, somebody actually created a mastering macro. So it'll go through and set because I used to have to do this manually before macros existed, specifically for Twisted Wave. I'd have to go through because you have to make sure your RMS level is between -18 and -24. Your peaks can't be higher than 3 dB overall. And that gets tricky because the more that you adjust your micro and your noise floor, has to be less than -28. So what happens is you increase the sensitivity of your microphone so that you can get to the correct peak level that you want to be at while you're recording. But then to find out, because your microphone or your room isn't treated or it's got a high noise floor, that your noise floor is higher than it needs to be. So then you have to go through and you'll spend hours just editing to get the right frequencies that you need and levels when you master. So the good thing is that ACX, somebody created a plugin to literally highlight your whole thing, hit a couple keys, and it will go through and master and do all of that for you. When it used to take, like I said, quite some time. The other thing that people will use is paid is Reaper. A lot of artists use it for recording, music, bands, so on and so forth. I don't use it just because it's paid, and these two work for me. Twisted Wave isn't paid, but it's fairly inexpensive and well worth it for me. But like I said, 99% of people will start with Audacity, and that's really all you need. And when you start recording, there's tons of information out there, but the two biggest things I can say are try to make sure you have the lowest noise floor that you have while you're recording. And as you're recording, you don't want your peaks to go above, they need to be between -18 and -20 dB, because you end up boosting it later in post-production, which again can cause some other artifacts that you don't want to have. So my point is like if you ever pull out a microphone, you're like, I got to make sure my levels are right. You always want to be in the green and not in the yellow and not in the red. You actually want to be kind of on the lower end part of the green, even though it seems low. When you go to master it and you do your normalization, peak amplitudes and things like that, then it really will bring out the sound and everything you've recorded.
So that's the tech side. I'm curious about like the acting side.
Sure.
Of reading audio, because like you've got characters, you've got emotions, you've got all this stuff happening, and like then you're also trying not to like screw up what you're reading. So
right.
And you have to infer like what people are feeling as they're saying these things.
Yeah,
I don't know.
That was my next curiosity.
Well, and
question, Gary.
And then like tacking onto that, keeping all of the voices straight, because like I think about Jim Dale reading the Harry Potter books and how many he did, like 200 and some different voices,
right?
Which
which is something I couldn't do.
No.
A lot of the books that I have chosen to narrate for only had a handful of characters. I typically, because of my tone in my voice, I typically tried to find books that were more fitting, because I obviously didn't want to try to read something for somebody who had something else in mind. There are people who certainly go through acting classes, through voice acting, and they hone in those characters. Luckily, the majority of the work that I've done hasn't required me to be too talented. I'll just put it that.
I suspect you are being rather self-deprecating there, just between you and me.
But Amber, I'll say to you, even though you said that it could be difficult with all the voices, I listened to everybody's read, and I listened to you when you read your story, right? And that was fantastic. So I don't know if you felt that way, but that was. I mean, everybody did a fantastic job. I'm just picking her, counting her out because you made the statement. Well, yeah.
It just seems difficult. I mean, well, thank you. When I read my son's stories, it's like I've got to remember what the dragon sounds like and what the witch sounds like and what the, and then I'm like, hello, I'm the robot. And it's like, oh my God, dude, I get exhausted just doing the bedtime stories.
Yeah. So one of the things.
But I am also an actor, so I'm like, that's.
You might be a little more critical than I am. But one of the things that I'm doing in the book that Jane and I are narrating now is I'm actually this will be the first time I've done it, is to go back and redo all of the speaking parts through the book kind of at a whole, or at least several chapters at once. So that way, right, for the alternate characters, because I used to what I would do is record a couple minutes of dialogue of each character, and I would have that dialogue saved. So that way, when I came to a chapter, when they were talking, I'd be like, I can't remember what they sounded like. So then I ended up recording something that was completely wrong. So I started doing that, but then to me that takes up more time. So I'd rather determine that character's voice and then go ahead and do all their speaking parts for the book, or the majority of the book. And then for each character, kind of on a day-by-day basis, go through the chapters that they do. So that way my tone is the same for that character, since my voice does change. And I don't stray too far from it. So yeah. I'm hoping this might bite me, but I'm hoping that that's actually going to be a benefit for the different characters.
So do all narrators change voices for each character, or?
Some do. Not all, though. I think it really depends on the author and how they want the book to sound, to be presented. I did. Oh, what did I do? I did a short story or a novella for someone. Now I can't remember the name of the book, but they had different characters and even creatures. But he wanted everything to be somewhat monotone because it was a dark novella to begin with. So I didn't have to do a lot of variation. So, like whenever we do auditions, we'll ask, we'll say, these are the list of characters you have. Do you have any particular voice in mind? Do you have an actor in mind? Do you have a tone in mind? And we'll try to cater to that. So, and and sometimes in the past I've sent them some examples. Hey, this particular character, these are the couple of different voices I came up with. Is there one that you like or don't like, or what have you?
Oh.
I am so excited to hear the audio chapter of my book now. Sorry, Gary, I didn't mean to cut you off.
So do you do forced voices? Like, do you do a falsetto, or now you just have Jane do it all?
I have Jane do it all now. However, the large USA book that I did, it was from a female perspective. So that was, I did read it in a normal tone, but I did speak in a higher tone voice because it was her and her sister, and then she had a mom. So it was it took me some time to nail down her mom, but but nonetheless, it's yeah, it's so now that I have Jane and her voice is so much better than mine as a female, as I certainly learned
really?
to her.
Whoa.
Yeah.
She has some experience.
Right.
Well, and that's, I suppose, another question then, because it strikes me as being quite an isolated job. Is there much opportunity to work with other people, or does it tend to be you, yourself, and thou, unless you happen to, get together with somebody else in the industry?
Yeah, so oddly enough, it would depend. Well, okay, first, yes, it is lonely, but I'm also an introvert, so this is my own way of communicating, I guess.
Go in the world to get lost and leave your
exactly.
Life. Yeah.
Right. So I don't mind it. There are authors, however, who will have a book that will be requesting both male and female, and it'll be two people who don't certainly know each other, and they'll just submit the auditions, and the author might pick, I like this girl's voice, this guy's voice, and pair them together. We just Jane and I lucked out on putting this together, so yeah.
And do you do sound effects as well, or?
No, I did have one book.
Bang bang.
Oh my god.
No, I know
there
there
are an
are.
audiobook with sound effects, and I
Yes.
can't listen to it.
It is weird. Some people do. I don't. The only thing that I've done was the author in two of her books wanted to have crashing wave sounds at the beginning and the end of each chapter, but that was it.
I have only ever listened to the Harry Potter books and the Land of Stories books, which are written by Chris Colfer, and he narrates his own audiobooks. And so that is my extent of audiobooks. And they're so incredibly different.
Right. It's hard. I don't listen to audiobooks either, but then again, one of the reasons I got into this was because I'm a slow reader. So I was like, well, maybe if I have fun while I'm reading and somebody else can listen along with me, it'll be a worthwhile endeavor. So that's kind of how it started. But I always thought it would be difficult because, right, you as a reader, you develop your own voices, sounds for those people that you're listening to. So then if you're listening to an audiobook, you're now forced to listen to how that person is representing the story, the character, so on and so forth. So for me, it would probably take me out of enjoying the story versus kind of, reading at my own pace with my own voices.
Because I was going to ask that actually, does it ruin the audiobook experience for you when you're listening to somebody else? And is it like the inner editor that we all have? It's like, oh my, no, I wouldn't have done it like that.
Yeah, it gets out. Yes. And so not only that, I can't watch on TikTok narrators narrating because of that. And it infuriates me because I'm like, no, you should have had at least 0.2 more seconds in between that last one. So timing is a really big thing to me. So I can't, it grates my nerves when I listen to so I'm like, no, I can't now. We're putting this down.
Okay. Jane, you task for the week. Get a camera in Chandler's room and make him watch some TikTok videos. You'll make millions.
Well, we did last night. I was showing him some, and he just kept pointing out what microphone they had. Oh, that's a whatever. That's he was being very technical. It was funny.
I was like, why does she have a sock on her?
Yeah.
On her microphone. Why is it angled like that? She's too far away. Too close.
Filter? Why does she have this?
There are so many people that's what they do is they watch videos and film their own reactions to those videos.
Yeah.
You could do that. Yeah.
No, I'll just be cringing in a corner. While entertaining for some people, it'll just be degrading.
So obviously this is something that you don't do full time.
Right.
What kind of market are we talking about? Is this a saturated kind of thing? Is this something where there's a lot of need? There's a lot of openings? Or is this something where there's a few people who kind of dominate?
No, so yes and no. And the reason I say that is if you were to just go and look up, and I'll send Jane the link, she can send it to you, or she probably already has it, where you can go, you don't even have to sign in, I don't think. You can go into ACX, Amazon's Audible, and actually look for authors that are looking for narrators, just to kind of give you an idea. But there are hundreds and hundreds of books that are looking to have narrators at a time. Mm-hmm. So that begs the question, is there, a demand for it? Yes. Is it saturated? Yes, but then your voice isn't the same as somebody else's, right? So, I mean, there are certainly people who make a wonderful living off of narrating full time. I know that I'm not one of those people, so I didn't, go down that road. I just knew that this could be something that would be fun for me and a few listeners. But I don't think it's a saturated market at all. No. Not only that, Jane and I are talking about a couple of other different options when it comes to narration and what have you. So there's an unlimited market. But if you were just looking at narration for books in general, no, I don't think it's overly saturated. Not only that, I think some people get involved and they realize how much time it takes to narrate a book, and then they come to find out they've only made $14 in royalties over the year. So it's a pro and a con. If it's something that you enjoy doing, then obviously you'd probably want to keep doing it, but it could certainly become lucrative.
I did a lot of acting younger, in high school, college days, and there's an aspect of it that appeals to that part of me that I haven't exercised in a long time.
Right. You can certainly stay busy. I mean, even doing like what Jane and I do, just posting snippets of stuff that we've creatively come up with on TikTok, even just to get the ball rolling. You're like, all right, well, do I enjoy doing this? Do I like posting a 3-minute long story that I've come up with, or 30 seconds or what have you? And then, you start to see people start commenting, people start following you. You're like, oh, this is okay. Then there's something to this. And then that might even give you, the bigger push that you need to spend more time on it.
Yeah. That's what did it
or
for
not
me.
to get burnt out.
Mm-hmm. Yes, posting those short little stories on TikTok and then people liking them, and it's like, oh wait, okay, well maybe I could narrate a book. It's fun. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Erica, you look like you were going to say something.
Oh, and then also, I think, I don't know, I'm thinking about people wanting to narrate and then not wanting to, or I'm trying to sort out my thought. So when I was first a therapist, there were like people in private practice who were telling me what they charged, and I was like, yeah, there's no way I'm worth that yet. Like, I knew that there was no way I could charge that at that point in time. I wasn't at that level. And now I look at that and was like, oh yeah, I'm worth that now. And
Right.
So, getting to that point to where you are charging what you're worth and knowing that there are people out there who will pay you what you're worth. And
That's very true, right? Because there are, like I said, with ACX, you can do royalty share, and it doesn't cost either of you anything. And that's just, again, to trying to get yourself started to see if you get any reception from it. And then, like you said, over time, you might feel like, okay, well, now I can charge $10 a finished production hour or $200 per production hour. I mean, it can certainly be out there for sure. And then not only that, ACX is just an example. Audio Bunny, which is a horrific name, in my opinion. They've been around forever, and it just has narrators that are on there looking for work, and then it's all, and it's paid work. So you're looking at, a couple $1,000s to finish a book, and you kind of, work with different authors and stuff like that. So, from my perspective, because I didn't feel like I was worth it, that I always did everything as a royalty share. And then, I
think people would pay to have you narrate.
Well, of course you're going to say that.
Well, sure. So that narrating is not my forte. Like, that it is, I 100% want my books narrated, because I have friends, I have a friend who is in my fandom who is seeing impaired. And so they had to find sites to import our fan fictions on so that they would read them to them. And I hadn't ever, you don't put certain things of information together until they're presented to you. I knew that there are seeing impaired people, but it never clicked for me. And, so I want my stuff narrated for that purpose, but that is not going to be me doing that at all.
Do you think you would do it if you didn't have to edit it?
No.
No. Okay. I didn't know if it was just the time consumption, or you didn't feel comfortable, or you didn't have the time.
No, and after I did my read, I'm like, oh my God, I have got to go in and change some of these names because if I can't read them, like.
Yeah. What were you going to say, Ember? You started to say something.
I think too, there's a lot of people out there, and I'm one of them. I'm a multi-potentialite, and I'm like, I can do everything myself. But the amount of technical knowledge that you have and that you have to employ in order to create a good audiobook and the editing that goes into that, I think people can appreciate that. And then when you're looking at what you're worth as a private contractor, like your experience and your technical know-how is part of what people are paying for. It's not just your labor. It's your learning. And like you've gone and done all that stuff, and like there's no way I want to do that. I don't want to go learn all that stuff. Like I don't want to mess with it. Forget it. So I think that that's something to keep in mind.
Yeah,
Yes.
maybe I take it for granted because I always like tinkering with things. So like this microphone I built. It's based on the Neumann U87, which if you're not familiar, it's a very widely.
I mean, I know exactly what you're talking about.
So it's
Good
been
old
a
Neumann 287. It's way better than 286.
well, if you were to read like what's the best microphone to get for audiobook acting or voice acting, it'll be the Neumann U87 or the Neumann TLM 103 or 102. So the TLM 102, 103.
Sorry, Chandler, just to interrupt. I am blown away by how you just throughout. I mean, we've been talking for nearly an hour, so side note, we'll be calling it a day fairly soon. But when you're just blurting out these things, I just how on earth do you have all of this in your head? It is phenomenal.
Jen could probably tell you. Well, Jen will tell you that I can't remember anything she tells me 10 minutes prior.
Yeah.
So all the stuff that's in my brain, it unfortunately dumps out everything. No, but it's because I've just done so much research on it, and I didn't, like a Neumann U87 microphone. They start out at close to $4,000, so I knew I didn't want that. Well, Mike Parts actually has a better microphone with better capabilities, and you can actually customize it, which is why I built this one, which was like $349. But again, it's because I like doing those types of things. I like trying different microphones, trying out different software, trying out different stuff. To me, that's enjoyable. So when you say, well, these are things that that you should charge for, I'm like, well, this was just me having fun and learning what I wanted to learn. Why should I charge people for this?
Don't tell them that. Just don't say that part.
Remove this clip.
Because you're worth it.
Thank you.
Hot, calling the kettle black here, and you're worth it.
And on that note, we're coming towards the full hour. I mean, it is the hour now. So does anybody have any final comments, thoughts, questions? Anybody in the chat have anything burning they'd like to ask?
I feel like I need a list of every product that you
Yeah, do you do reviews on the different levels of equipment?
I agree with you, Ocelot. Absolutely.
It's like, I mean, I did start writing some of them down.
Just go back. I'm sure YouTube will put the captions on the video. Just go back.
Well, but then some of it, like, I don't know. I hit 40 last year, and like all of my freaking my eyes are going to crap, my ears are going to crap, and like hearing things. So yeah, some of this stuff I wasn't hearing correctly either when I went to like Google it, but yeah, I'll go do
a lot of people get that when they hear me talking. It just bounces out. No, I'm kidding.
Also, that has a good question. Have you considered voice acting for visual novels or games?
Ooh.
I mean, I would love the opportunity, but I don't know if my professional voice acting resume would constitute that in a real world. I think Voice Bunny does have that as one of their options. I know it's terrible.
Audio Bunny,
Audio Bunny, not Voice Bunny. I'm sorry.
I was like, is it Voice Bunny or Audio Bunny? Because I wrote down Audio Bunny.
It's Voice Bunny.
It's the noise with the bunny.
Yes, voice bunny, not audio bunny. My apologies.
Noisy bunny.
Just
Well, I didn't mean to
bunny,
take up the whole time. I
No,
appreciate
that's
it.
the whole reason you came here. You know, we
Well, no, I know, but you didn't get to do your 30-minute writing sprint. I was going to write with you.
That's okay. We're exhausted.
Yeah,
That
well,
happens too when I talk a lot.
I wrote earlier today because I needed to.
I may
well,
write later today in bed.
I mean, Chandler, I've found this absolutely fascinating, and not only that, it's been lovely to finally meet you. We've heard about you for, a couple of years now. It's like, oh, I finally get to meet him. You get to be the friend. Oh wow, have you got a creeper? Oh wow, is careful, he might blow up. What would people like to do then? Shall we call it a day there? Shall we go over and do a bit of writing? What are people's preferences?
I have to cut and run today.
Okay. Let's call it a day then.
You guys can carry on without me.
No. Cool. Well, in that case, we shall call it a day there. Yes, Ocelot, I agree. It's been an absolutely fascinating conversation. Yes. So, Chandler, thanks so much for coming. And yeah, you'll have to come again and tell us more about the ins and outs of it, because I get the feeling that we've only scratched the surface here.
Hey, if you've got any questions, certainly, reach out to Jane or send it to me. I give her my information so y'all will have it.
It has definitely solidified that I don't want to do it.
Oh, no.
Oh, no. Yeah.
Whereas I have the opposite impression of, I think this might be interesting.
It is. I mean, awesome. It is fun.
Yeah, it is.
And Chandler, where can people find you?
I'm in Raleigh, North Carolina. No. So I've got the TikTok at Whodunit Stories. That's probably the easiest. Yeah.
Okay. And is that where people can hear your stuff and potentially hire you if they?
Yeah, I've got some information on there. Yeah, the majority of the stories are Whodunit stories. They're just a couple minutes long. I was just spitballing some things, trying to get used to TikTok and book talking.
Yeah.
And everything.
And are there any specific products, books that you've narrated that you would love people to listen to as a good example?
It would have been a good idea for me to put together a list. Yes. The Right Night by L.B. Martin is who we are currently narrating for, so that's going to be out by December or by Christmas.
Oh wow!
Okay. Diamond Girl is one of the USA bestsellers, and I forget the author's name. She also wrote, oh gosh, the sequel, and it's blanking on me. Yeah, no, I should have put together a list. So my apologies.
Just let us know. We'll try and spread the word.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. Not nearly as much as we appreciate you coming on the show. So thanks so much.
No, sure. And
everybody in the chat, thank you very much indeed for joining us. I hope you found today as interesting as we have. Oh wow, like your cat.
It's a kitty.
Obviously we've only got 4 more days of NaNoWriMo, so
4 more days.
So how many of you are 90% done?
Hold on.
I was gonna say, I know Erica, you blow out 35,000 words an episode.
I'm at 85%.
Oh, nice.
Wow.
You're gonna do it. You're gonna earn
that. Fantastic.
I am. I have it hanging on my closet door.
That's awesome.
Earn me.
Ember, how far are you?
Sorry, I don't know. Maybe 15,000 words in, maybe 20. I was thinking about just like going for it over the next 4 days, just to challenge myself for 5 days.
You should, because after the 4 days, everything gets deleted. You should know that from NaNoWriMo. Whatever you've written.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
It's like rewrites. What's that?
Well, if you haven't finished it by the end of Nano, just all your work just magically disappears.
It's just hard for me too because I have rewrites and I don't know if I have 50K worth of rewrites to do.
I find if I add a lot of ands, these, and us in there, it fills up a boatload of space.
Oh, that's a shame. We never actually asked you about your actual writing stuff. We got to
No,
sidetracked.
no, I'm not worthy. You're
Oh.
no, your group. That'd be like me saying, okay, let's talk about your narration. No, let's not.
Happy
No,
to.
we're not going that right.
Well, on that note, thanks, Chandler, for joining us. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you, Amber, Jane, Erica, and Gary. And from all of us here at the IWF, see you tomorrow. Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you.
Bye, friends.
Bye-bye.